The Little Library on Maple Street. The silence in Elias Thorne's house was heavy, the kind of silence that settles into the floorboards and gathers in the corners of a room like dust. Since his wife Martha had passed away 3 years ago, Elias had forgotten the sound of his own voice. He was 72, a retired carpenter with rough hands and a heart that felt a little too empty. But today, there was a different sound. The rhythmic swish-swish of sandpaper against cedar echoed in his garage. Elias was building something. It wasn't a chair or a birdhouse, which were his usual projects. It was a small, weatherproof cabinet with a shingled roof and a glass door, a perfect miniature replica of his own Victorian home. It was a little free library. He had seen them popping up in neighborhoods across the country, but he had never thought to build one until he found a box of Martha's favorite books in the attic. Better than letting them gather dust, he muttered to himself, his voice raspy from disuse. He painted the wood a cheerful cherry red, a stark contrast to the gray October sky looming over Maple Street. When the paint dried, he dug a hole near the sidewalk, right next to the old oak tree that dropped crunchy brown leaves on the pavement. He mounted the library on a sturdy post, the smell of fresh paint mixing with the scent of damp earth and falling leaves. Elias stepped back to admire his work. It looked inviting, a tiny beacon of color. He returned to the house and came back with 3 books. The first was a crisp thriller. The second, a cookbook full of Southern recipes. The third was a worn, leather-bound copy of The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. It had been the first gift Martha ever gave him back in 1970. He hesitated, his thumb tracing the gold lettering on the spine. It felt like giving away a piece of her, but he remembered what she used to say. "Stories aren't meant to be trapped on shelves, Eli. They need to breathe." With a deep breath, he placed the books inside the little cabinet and latched the glass door. Elias retreated to his front porch, sat in his rocking chair, and pulled his coat tighter against the chill. He waited. For hours, cars rushed by, and neighbors walked their dogs with their heads buried in their phones. No one noticed the red box. Just as the streetlights flickered on, buzzing with electricity, a skateboarder rolled down the sidewalk. It was a teenager with messy hair and oversized headphones. To Elias's surprise, the boy didn't speed past. He slowed down, hopped off his board, and peered into the glass box. Elias held his breath. The boy opened the door. He didn't take the thriller or the cookbook. He reached for the worn copy of Huckleberry Finn. He flipped through the pages, paused at the inscription inside, and then tucked the book under his arm. As the boy skated away into the twilight, Elias felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time: a connection. Chapter 2. The next morning, Elias woke up with a purpose he hadn't felt in years. Usually his morning routine was a slow, mechanical shuffle from the bed to the coffee maker. Today, he bypassed the coffee and went straight to the window. The red box stood bright against the morning frost. Elias threw on his coat and walked down the driveway, his breath visible in the crisp air. He unlatched the glass door. The thriller was still there, but the Southern cookbook was gone. In its place sat a glossy gardening magazine and a paperback with a neon-colored spine, a graphic novel titled Starship Drifters. He blinked. He had expected the library to be empty or perhaps vandalized. He hadn't expected a trade. He took the graphic novel inside with him. Sitting at his kitchen table with a steaming mug of black coffee, Elias flipped through the pages. It was full of vibrant illustrations of aliens and spaceships. It was noise and color, the exact opposite of his quiet life. But as he read, he found himself chuckling. The dialogue was witty, the characters brave. It was a window into a world he didn't understand, left by a stranger he didn't know. Throughout the week, the library became the neighborhood's heartbeat. Elias watched from his porch, hidden behind the morning newspaper. He saw Mrs. Gable, the busy lawyer from across the street, stop by on her way to work. She took the thriller and left a historical biography. He saw the mailman pause his route to scan the titles, leaving a crossword puzzle book in exchange for the gardening magazine. But Elias was waiting for one person in particular. It was Friday evening when the familiar rumble of skateboard wheels returned. The same teenager, still wearing those oversized headphones, rolled up to the curb. He opened his backpack and pulled out the leather-bound copy of Huckleberry Finn. He placed it carefully back on the shelf and closed the door. Elias's heart hammered against his ribs. He waited until the boy had skated around the corner before he hurried down the driveway. He pulled the book out. It felt warm, or perhaps that was just his imagination. He opened the cover to see if the binding was still intact. It was. But as he fanned the pages, a folded piece of notebook paper fluttered out and landed on the sidewalk. Elias bent down to pick it up. In messy, blue-inked handwriting, a message was scrawled. "My English teacher said this book was boring. He was wrong. Thanks, Leo." Elias read the note once, then twice. A smile broke across his face, a genuine, deep smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. He wasn't just a lonely old man on a porch anymore. To a kid named Leo, he was a curator of adventure. Chapter 3. Elias spent the entire Saturday searching for the perfect follow-up. He scoured his shelves, bypassing the encyclopedias and the dense history tomes. He needed something with grit, something that felt like the cold wind on a skateboard ride. He settled on The Call of the Wild by Jack London. It was short, punchy, and raw. On a fresh sheet of paper, Elias wrote, "If you liked the river, try the Yukon. It's colder, but the dogs are better company than the people. E." He tucked the note inside the cover and placed the book front and center in the red cabinet. Then, instead of retreating to the safety of his living room window, Elias grabbed a rake. He had no real need to rake. The wind was doing a fine job of scattering the leaves for him, but he wanted to be outside. He wanted to be reachable. The afternoon sun dipped low, casting long golden shadows across the lawn. Neighbors walked by, waving at Elias. He waved back, feeling less like a ghost and more like a fixture of the street. "Love the library, Elias," Mrs. Gable shouted as she jogged past. "I left a mystery novel in there for you." "Thank you, Sarah," Elias called back, surprised he remembered her first name. Around 5 o'clock, the familiar rumble of wheels approached. Elias tightened his grip on the rake, but didn't look up, pretending to be engrossed in a stubborn pile of maple leaves. The wheels stopped, the cabinet door squeaked open. Silence followed. "You have good taste." The voice cracked slightly in the middle. Elias stopped raking and leaned on the handle, turning slowly. Leo was standing there, The Call of the Wild in one hand, his skateboard under his other arm. He had pushed his headphones down around his neck. Elias cleared his throat. "I just read what's good. That one is about survival." Leo looked at the book, then back at Elias. Up close, the boy looked tired. There were dark circles under his eyes that spoke of late nights and perhaps a home life that wasn't as quiet as Elias's. "I need survival tips," Leo said with a half shrug, trying to look casual but failing to hide the earnestness in his voice. "My mom, she works double shifts. It gets quiet at my place, too quiet." "I know that feeling better than anyone," Elias said softly. "Quiet can be loud sometimes. That's why I built the box. Helps break the silence." Leo tapped the cover of the book. "Thanks for the note, E. I'm Leo." "Elias." "Cool. Hey, Elias. Leo hesitated, shifting his weight. I have a stack of comic books, old ones, my dad's. I've read them 1,000 times. Do you think people here would read them? They aren't real books. Elias looked at the red cabinet and at the teenager who was trying so hard to contribute to something. Leo, Elias said, a twinkle returning to his eye, stories are stories. If they matter to you, they'll matter to someone else. Bring them. I'll make space. Leo grinned, a flash of genuine youth breaking through his fatigue. Deal. See you later, Elias. As Leo skated off, clutching the book like a lifeline, Elias realized something. The library wasn't just a box for books anymore. It was a meeting place for the lonely. And for the first time in 3 years, Elias had a plan for tomorrow. Chapter 4. Leo wasn't kidding about the stack. On Monday, he arrived with a backpack so heavy it threw off his balance on the skateboard. Together, he and Elias stuffed the red cabinet with vintage comics, the X-Men, Spider-Man, and obscure sci-fi titles from the 80s. These are collector's items, kid, Elias noted, handling a plastic-wrapped issue gently. You sure you want to put them out here? They might get dog-eared. Leo shrugged, leaning against the oak tree. Dad used to say stories die in plastic. Besides, look, he pointed down the street. 2 younger kids on bicycles were already circling, eyeing the box like hawks. By Wednesday, the sidewalk in front of Elias's house had transformed. It wasn't just a pass-through anymore, it was a destination. The comics attracted the neighborhood kids who sat on the curb reading with intense focus. The novels attracted the adults who stopped to chat about plot twists while walking their dogs. The silence that had plagued Elias for 3 years was replaced by the sounds of pages turning, bicycle bells, and laughter. But late November in New England is temperamental. The weather reports called it a nor'easter. The sky turned a bruised purple, and the wind began to whip the bare branches of the oak tree violently. By evening, the rain was coming down in sheets, sideways, and stinging. Elias sat in his living room watching the window rattle. He thought about the little red roof. He had shingled it well, but the wind was fierce. He thought about Martha's copy of Huckleberry Finn, which Leo had returned yesterday, and the comics that meant so much to the boy. He couldn't sit still. Grabbing his heavy yellow slicker and a flashlight, he pushed open his front door. The wind nearly tore the handle from his grip. He marched down the driveway, head down against the deluge, carrying a heavy plastic tarp and bungee cords. He reached the sidewalk, water streaming down his face. "Hold on," he muttered to the little box. "I've got you." But as he fumbled with the tarp, struggling to fight the wind that snapped it like a sail, a pair of headlights cut through the rain. A car pulled up to the curb. Then a figure came running from down the street. "Elias, wait!" It was Leo. He was soaked to the bone, wearing a hoodie that offered no protection. He grabbed one corner of the flapping tarp. "I saw the forecast. I didn't want the comics to get ruined." "Get inside, you'll catch pneumonia," Elias yelled back, though his heart swelled. "Here, let me help," another voice chimed in. Mrs. Gable, the lawyer, had stepped out of her car, still in her business suit, holding a large umbrella which she uselessly tried to shield them with before tossing it aside to grab a bungee cord. Together, the 3 of them, the old carpenter, the lonely teenager, and the busy lawyer, wrestled the tarp over the library. They secured it tight, wrapping the little red box like a precious gift. Standing there in the pouring rain, breathless and dripping wet, they looked at each other. Mrs. Gable laughed, wiping mascara from her cheek. "Well, that's the most excitement I've had on a Friday night in years." Leo wiped his wet hair from his eyes, grinning. "Safe and sound." Elias looked at them, his neighbors, his friends. He realized he wasn't just protecting books, he was protecting the thing that had brought them all together. "Come on," Elias said, his voice firm and warm. "I have hot cocoa and dry towels. Everyone inside." Chapter 5. The kitchen, once a fortress of silence, hummed with life. The smell of wet wool and damp earth was quickly overpowered by the rich scent of hot cocoa. Mrs. Gable, who insisted they call her Sarah, sat at the small round table, her heels kicked off, nursing a mug with 2 hands. Leo sat on the floor near the radiator, drying his hair with a fluffy yellow towel. Elias stood by the stove, stirring the pot, listening to the sound of voices bouncing off his walls. "I haven't read a comic book since I was 12, Sarah admitted, eyeing the stack Leo had saved. "I forgot how colorful they are." "You can borrow Spider-Man," Leo offered, grinning, "but you have to bring it back. Rule of the library." They talked for hours. Sarah spoke about the pressure of the law firm, how she missed reading for fun. Leo spoke about his dad, who had passed away a few years ago, leaving behind the comics and a hole in the family that his mom was working 2 jobs to try and fill. Elias listened, realizing that everyone on Maple Street was carrying something heavy. The little red box hadn't just held books, it had given them a place to put those burdens down, even for a moment. Winter came and went. The snow piled high on the little shingled roof of the library, but the path to it was always shoveled clear, sometimes by Elias, sometimes by Leo, and once, surprisingly, by the mailman. When spring finally broke, bringing with it the scent of wet grass and blooming dogwood, Elias returned to his garage. The rhythmic swish-swish of sandpaper began again. He wasn't building another library, he was building a bench. It was a sturdy thing, made of white oak and sealed against the elements. He installed it right next to the library, beneath the sprawling branches of the old tree. "What's this for?" Leo asked one afternoon, hopping off his board. He had grown taller over the winter, and he looked less tired. "Well," Elias said, wiping sawdust from his hands, "I noticed people were standing around reading the back covers. Figured they might want to sit. Stories are better when you get comfortable." And they did. The bench became the neighborhood's living room. Sarah would sit there on Saturday mornings, sipping coffee and reading the comics Leo recommended. Mothers sat while their children traded picture books. Leo often sat there doing his homework or just watching the cars go by, knowing he wasn't alone. One warm afternoon in May, Elias sat on his porch rocking chair. The window was open. He could hear the chatter from the bench, a mix of laughter, the rustle of paper, and the greeting of neighbors. He looked at the empty seat beside him where Martha used to sit. He picked up his own book, the copy of Huckleberry Finn that had started it all. "You were right, Martha," he whispered to the breeze. "They needed to breathe, and so did I." Elias Thorne wasn't just the old man in the house on the corner anymore. He was the librarian of Maple Street, and for the first time in a long time, his story was far from over.